This is Sean Soderstrom, co-founder and CEO of Corded, and you're listening to the Real Talk podcast.
Rob Reffkin.
Inspiring.
Real estate tech space in 2022.
It's evolving. It can be overwhelming.
And inflation.
Not transitory. Shortly thereafter, we actually did get kind of a pre-seed investment round.
What does .io stand for?
Computer science world, IO stands for input output.
Corded brings professional networking and workflow to help agents make better data-driven marketing, hiring, and referral decisions. 50% of agents drop out in the first year, 70% have dropped out after year two, national stats. The best place for someone to get set up in this industry is on a team. And yet,
100%.
How do you figure out which teams are recruiting? It's very, very difficult. This is Sean Soderstrom, co-founder and CEO of Corded, and you're listening to the Real Talk podcast.
Great. This is Dan Brietbach with Corded, and you're listening to Real Talk, the podcast.
Wow.
Real Talk, the podcast.
I think he really nailed it.
That was really good. That was pretty good. All right. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the first episode recorded in 2022 of the Real Talk podcast. I've had the pleasure of having several dozen of my friends, industry colleagues, to join on my platform to talk all things real estate tech, business, life. We even drive off and, with my buddy Nick Svensson, we talked about hunting, fishing in Finland, some random things. But back to reality here. It is early February, brutally cold outside in New York City. We are in an undisclosed location in downtown Manhattan at the headquarters of Corded, one of the up-and-coming leading-edge real estate tech firms that is not necessarily cutting into our space and compass, but is definitely acting as a supplement to the tech offerings that are still being built for real estate brokers and real estate professionals and on a national level. So I'm here sitting with Sean and Dan, both co-founders of Corded, and we're going to go deep dive into first their personal life, how we met, backstory of where we came from, and also go deep dive into their company. I'm also here with my co-host Danielle.
What's up, everyone?
And Danielle will also be sending in some hard-hitting, gut-punching questions towards the end. So get ready, boys.
Great. Just the hard ones.
Just the hard one. So next couple minutes, I want to take a couple minutes to talk about our section, which is the one-word answer section. Now, it could be 2 or 3 words. I'm not too picky, but I'm going to give you a phrase and then give me, maybe both of you can go if you guys want, give me the first thought or first phrase or first sentence that comes to your mind when I give you these words, okay? So, cue the background music and let's go. Number 1, COVID real estate 2020.
Crazy price inflation.
Crazy price inflation. See, 3 words, perfectly fine. That's good. We're on a roll. But do you want to add to that?
I'll do the next one. How about that?
Okay. COVID real estate 2021.
New heights.
New heights, absolutely. We're not talking Manhattan. We're talking Miami. We're talking Aspen, Vail. I'm sure where you were.
Montana. Big Sky
Montana.
saw a huge price increase.
Huge. Do you guys watch the show Yellowstone?
Yeah.
Yeah, they talk shit about Big Sky.
I believe that.
Oh, those
right
out-of-towners and building their resorts and increasing the housing costs and kicking us out. I mean, it's true.
Right. Well, it is pretty crazy. I saw that, just over the course of the last couple of years, rents alone have gone up 100% in Big Sky. So if just for folks, the 100% increase. And speaking of which, I went to Big Sky last week, and I've gone a couple of years with my buddies. The price of just short-term rentals from last year to now has also doubled, which is
exponential. And it's not crazy. Like the quality has doubled.
No, it's the exact same price. This is the Case Shiller index doubling, right?
That's right.
It's the same type of properties or the same type of properties. So totally wild.
I mean, in addition to housing prices, a lot of agents saw new heights in their business,
which is great. I read an article in your Wall Street Journal about Lake Tahoe and how the prices have just exponentially doubled. And the agents themselves were saying, this, we have never seen this in our careers.
We were looking at some of the numbers for Miami, where we have our first market for Corded, And the market doubled in sales volume, but then 90% of that growth went to the top 10% of agents. So there was a group of people who really outperformed it last year in Miami.
Danielle, who's your favorite agent in Miami?
Levy Meyer.
Shout out Levy. Shout out
The
Levy.
referral
No
came.
hesitation.
Cue air horn. No hesitation. Yeah, there was a video that Levy Meyer posted a couple weeks, maybe a week ago. He sent it. It was a open house, a line to a house that stretched around the block.
Yeah.
At that point, as a buyer, I would just walk away. Is that even worth it? But yes, okay. So back to 2021. Yeah, new heights is what is your one. Okay. Number 3, real estate reality television.
Ooh. Glamour. And well, the other thing is what I see this is and amazing tension.
Yeah.
I feel like there's great reality TV in the housing market.
Sure. Are you a fan of reality TV?
Broadly speaking, no. However, I have, because a number of the agents we talk to are actually participants in like $1 Million Listing and stuff like that, I have started to be a little bit better versed in it.
Okay.
And, it does seem a little bit more glamorous than the act I had of renting my apartment in Williams you're referring to. So maybe there's a little self-selection bias there, but I think that there's a huge popularity in the show, and I think not just in $1 Million Listing. What's the one in LA? What's the big one?
Selling Sunset.
Selling Sunset. Oh my God, I have to talk. Every person that one of my friends that asked was like, do you know the Selling Sunset people? I'm like, oh, we're working on it.
We did. We met them in Inman.
We did.
I think it's useful for people who do it, regardless of whatever you think. It's
ultimate
useful for
marketing
business.
machine.
Yeah.
Incredible marketing.
Oh yeah. I mean, the trajectory of some of these brokers, if they were not on the show versus they are on the show, not all of them, but some of them definitely, help their exposure and gaining the influence of appropriate clients. So, okay, cool. Let's see. Oh, this is for you, Sean. Rob Reffkin.
Easy, inspiring.
Inspiring. That's right. What did you think of him as an ex-boss?
He was great.
Yeah.
He gave me the opportunity to learn about the space and to get involved at Compass, and that's part of the reason that we're here today. So
Yeah,
really
that's
excited
right.
about
One
it.
of the reasons why many of us are still friends, even to this day. Okay. Miami real estate. Ooh, this is...
Waterfront new construction.
Yes.
I feel like that is such a huge part of Miami, especially the experience of flying down to Miami. You see basically Miami, waterfront, like building,
High-rises,
and it's just continually coming
Cranes.
in. And a lot of the folks that we talk to, it's such a powerhouse within the city in terms of inventory coming on, and where people basically want to live. So the first thing that always pops up in my head is these big, new, beautiful luxury condos all on the waterfront.
Right. That's understandable. Even after the seaside incident, oceanside incident, there still seems to be an appetite and hunger for new construction in both Brickell and South Beach, and even south of Brickell, I suppose. And it's fascinating to me that just like the Upper East Side, the more high rises there are in a neighborhood, the more inventory there is. Thus, the more competition you have as an investor or a homeowner. But that doesn't seem to deter any of these buyers in Miami.
Well, I think what happened in Surfside is that was an older building.
Yeah.
And so there's a preference to have these views, and the easy way to do that is to do it in a big building. And now there's all of this super luxury new properties that are coming up that frankly is just matching the demand. Even though there's so many buildings coming up, I think they're all performing very well.
Right.
In Miami, just very, very interesting. Obviously, it's always been a destination for international buyers and whatnot, but I do feel like that has increased pretty dramatically also in the last handful of years. And these new condos, in many ways, it's kind of like buying a bank vault a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? Like I think a lot of it is a place that people are parking cash. In this environment as well.
Yep. I agree. It's becoming New York City for sure. The real estate tech space in 2022.
I would say it's evolving, and depending on how up to date you are as an agent, it can be overwhelming.
Right.
And there's a lot of choice, but there's not that much guidance on what to do.
What about as consumers? Do you think it's also overwhelming?
I think so. A lot of the innovation that's coming into the space is actually quite consumer oriented. When you think about iBuyers and power buyers that are giving, the ability to do financing for cash offers.
Yeah.
But who do you go to for what is still very confusing for a lot of people.
Sure. No, that's not understandable. Well, follow-up question for you, Sean, is what do you think the real estate tech space was in, let's just say, 2020, 2 years ago? Mm-hmm. Would you have another word for that?
I think in 2020, it was exciting.
Yeah.
And now the rate of change has picked up. And as a result, people are kind of flooded with choice in a way that wasn't ever true to that extent, as it is today.
Yeah, I think if you Google real estate technology companies, there are a couple links that will pop up. I mean, there are probably 100, 200 different companies just in the United States that you've never heard of, you and I have never heard of, that is, so-and-so on paper doing extraordinary things. But yeah, I think that we're at that point in reality where the cream will rise to the top, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Dan, inflation.
Not transitory.
Yeah.
Right. I think it is an interesting difference here. Back in the day, I was an economic consultant and spent a little bit of my early career actually as an economist. And there's always this big debate: what is inflation?
Yeah.
Right. And I think we're seeing this really interesting situation where we have had this expanding monetary base for many, many, many years. But the supply chain incident that we see and basically the disruptions across that, and not just in the United States but globally, has really been what's powered the inflation that we're seeing today. And it's really interesting to see those things work itself out. So I mean, it comes through in the housing market and in asset prices, and obviously we saw the stock market take an extraordinary amount of gains over the last handful of years. I'll be very curious to see if that's going to abate in the next handful of months, and my anticipation is probably not. I think that there is a real change in the supply chain that's actually impacting prices, and we see it throughout the entire course of building houses to repurchasing of new houses and rentals.
I see. Yeah, real bull over here. That's great. I like to hear that. Number 10, sellers in 2021.
Sellers in 2021 very much wanting to join the bandwagon and sell their home. However, a lot of sellers were thinking, I'm curious to sell, or I'd sell at this price, but where do I buy? So unless you're an investor, there's sometimes a little bit of an issue there.
That's right. Think about your typical homeowner in Big Sky, Montana. Owned their townhouse for 30 years. Now it's worth $5 million, but where are they going to? They can sell it, great. They can liquidate. As a married couple, you can only file. You're only exempt up to, if you file taxes together, you're only exempt up to $500,000 in taxes if it's your primary residence. So you're going to pay a lot in capital gains. Also, where are you going to move afterwards? It's a problem. Yeah. Okay.
It's an interesting implication for the agent, because if you're priced out of your neighborhood because you've sold and then you have nowhere to buy, and then you consider buying in an adjacent or different geography, but your agent is hyper-locally specialized in the area that you worked in, can there be an opportunity to introduce another agent
100%.
That works in that next neighborhood or that
100%.
next county? But that kind of collaboration is relatively new. It's a relatively new problem. And so it's going to be interesting to see which kind of agents can kind of take advantage of that sale to buy transaction. And maybe there's a referral in there.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
when we look at Florida, and we had this conversation with another number of the agents down there, a lot of folks, for example, have moved into Miami 2 years ago, and they're getting such huge offers on their property they just purchased. They're actually willing to resell it, but then where do they go? And actually, there's some of these,
Homestead.
I want to call them secondary markets or anything like that, right? But outside of your kind of core South Beach, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, or Delray markets, that people are actually
You're not going there.
Yeah, they're going to thinking about, is there opportunities around Tampa? Are there opportunities in the Panhandle potentially, where you get a huge house on a beach for half the price, and you just made what was a pretty good chunk of change over a very short amount of time. So there is this question of geographic mobility, maybe a little bit more. And I think people are just a little bit more open to thinking about, are there alternatives to some of these cities where the prices are crazy?
100%.
In addition to everyone thinking, I don't care if the prices are crazy, I want to move to Miami, right? So there's still a lot of that going on as well.
The other one I would add, I know we're supposed to go through this section quickly, is off-market. where we
Yeah.
see a lot of our agents on Corded saying, is there a way that I can figure out what the price would be if I could sell this house without putting it on the market? And so we've created the opportunity to kind of connect those two agents and say, the owner would only sell for $6 million. Is there a buyer out there? And try to connect those opportunities, which I think is a pretty interesting innovation to kind of anticipate the market.
It's probably a very interesting tool in an up market like we are today, right?
That's right.
If we could get a search done where we know the seller will take an X amount of money and it's an up market and there are buyers that will reach that figure, maybe not next month, but next quarter, that would be something interesting that I'm sure brokers would want to lean on if there was a tool like that. All right, let's pivot. I like to abuse that word on this podcast. We're going to pivot, cue different music, and we are going to go into warm-up questions. We're going to talk a little bit about you guys. We talked about the market. We talked about real estate for a minute. We're going to deep dive into that next anyway. But for this section, let's talk about, your life, personal, let's let the audience like you before they listen to you, right?
No guarantees of that.
All right, so you guys, maybe we'll just go back and forth with this, but Sean, why don't you go first? Give me your go-to activity in New York City.
I would say Barry's boot camp followed by socializing in a friend's apartment.
That's right. Okay. Yeah, I can see the berries and the socializing on your private Instagram profile. So as authentic as Sean can get.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, Dan, your New York City go-to restaurant.
Oh, go-to restaurant. So, especially these days, I live in South Williamsburg, so I end up at Dumont Burger more often than I'd like to admit. Great classic cheeseburger.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of my.
If I get fancy, I go down to Peter Luger's for the cheeseburger.
Oh, the Peter Luger's cheese lunch menu.
Yeah, that's right.
Cheeseburger. I heard it's good.
It's amazing.
I heard that one was good.
It's very doable.
Do you like Peter Luger's overall too?
I like it that they're not really nice to me. I still think that there's that they show up with that big porterhouse steak, which you can really only get once every couple of years.
Oh yeah, no,
absurd. But yeah, I love Peter Luger.
Yeah,
You take your order on the table.
Yeah, exactly. I remember the last time I was there, the girl I was with said, "How big is the potato?" And the guy looked at her and said, "It's a potato."
Yeah,
I feel like that's a classic Peter Luger. That's a classic Peter Luger moment.
Yeah, they're kind of rude to you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's cool. It's a tourist spot, I think. I
think so.
If I was going to drop a lot of money, I'd probably go to like a Gallagher's or a Quality Meats or.
Hey, those are also delicious.
Oh, do you ever go to a restaurant, Sean, real quick? I know this is an important question.
I love Shuko, Japanese restaurant near Union Square, near the Compass office.
Okay.
And then Lama Inn in Williamsburg.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Peruvian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, I've walked by there a bit.
I wanted to say Rayo's. That's my go-to spot.
Rayo's.
It's where I go once or twice a week. No big deal. But
Dan's been once, and he gets a lot of mileage after having fun.
Is it Rayo's or Rouse?
definitely Rayo's.
Okay. You know what's funny? One of our tenants in an undisclosed location in New York City off 21st Street lives above Rayo's.
Okay.
And she said that it was quiet during the pandemic and she does not like it now. But that's the, benefit of, I guess, cost benefit of living in that location on that block. All right, back to Sean. What makes New York City so good to live and work in?
I would say cosmopolitan and interesting people. What a great place to be. I mean, you're constantly surrounded by people that you're inspired by, that you'd like to have fun with.
Extremely talented people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
New York's like a raging river that, like, when you choose to, you can kind of wade in and it will just take you, Like, there's always so much energy and, like, to some degree, everyone kind of feels like this probably at the end of a Saturday night. You're, like, pulling on the sides of the river to scrape yourself out, right?
Get out of here!
And I feel like New York has that intense energy and vibe to it that you can kind of, it will take you as fast or as slow as you let it.
Yeah, it's honestly addicting.
I love it.
That intensity, it's addicting. You can't get that anywhere else.
That's right.
Yeah, you can spend a couple weeks in Bozeman or Big Sky, but you're always going to want to crave the New York City energy, right?
That's right.
Dan, favorite city, state outside of New York City and why?
Ooh. I'm a huge New Orleans fan.
Okay.
I love New Orleans. I think just right outside of like downtown and kind of Frenchman and Treme, just world-class jazz. Obviously, New Orleans, basis of jazz, right?
Sure.
You know how to spell jazz, right?
Oh, what do you play?
I play the guitar.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you know.
What kind of guitar? Acoustic, jazz, blues?
Jazz, blues, a little bit of a both electric and acoustic.
Okay.
But, trying to get creative. Obviously, I was so good that I became a data scientist. So, leave a little gaps for it. But I still, huge fan, love jazz, love New Orleans, the kind of just great vibe. Just organic musicianship.
100%. Yeah, and jazz music itself is definitely more sophisticated than modern music. So I could see if you are into music, you have to be into jazz. You got to be into jazz.
It makes you sound cooler for sure.
Cooler.
That's true.
Yeah, way cooler. Going back to music though, as a data scientist, you have to be disciplined to become a data scientist. It's the same process of becoming a musician. You have to be disciplined. You have to learn the basics, right? You have to learn the chords. You got to learn the rhythm. You got to learn the key signature, time signature, all that stuff. So you got to have that base foundation of that discipline. Oh, I got to learn this, building block, the building blocks, just like how you became who you are today.
It's real interesting in that regard. I kind of see a lot of similarities between that, right? Effective musicians, they learn the chords, they learn the scales, they learn the chops, but when they're playing, they don't think about that. Right, it's all about, those are just tools and pieces you have to play the music, right?
You gotta know
as a data scientist or as a computer scientist or a quant nerd, right? You find all of these things in terms of, this is the particular type of machine learning algorithm, and this is the type of, data manipulation strategies, et cetera, right? But fundamentally, you kind of let all that stuff go and think, what problem am I solving?
Right.
And then, those things are just hammers and drills.
Your training follows that.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I think both of those things are foundational stuff. But if to a real player or a real data scientist, it is about how you solve the problem or play the tune. It's not about how you basically just represent the tools.
Yeah, this is a whole other podcast episode, guys.
Yeah, that's right.
This is we should start a channel called How Musicians Perform in the Real World, and then derive how musicians, how they learn and what they learn applies to what they do that's totally separate from music, but in the real world. I think that's a really good podcast.
All right, next episode.
All right, Sean, do you have a role model in the real estate industry? Who and why?
Yeah, I think so. I would say David Doctorow, who is the CEO of Realtor.com.
Oh, okay.
So he's a mentor and a role model.
Oh, you know him.
He came from McKinsey and then went to Expedia and then went to Realtor.com. He's a brilliant strategist. He's been able to pick up on this complicated industry so quickly, and he's an incredible people leader. He's just a really good guy, and he was able to kind of jump into this new organization in a brand new industry and establish a ton of credibility internally, and now you're seeing it externally as well. He's a really inspiring.
How long has he been? Realtor.com has been around for a while. I don't know much about him, but how long has he been in that position?
Not more than 2 years.
Okay, so it's fairly recent. Mm-hmm. What was he doing beforehand?
I believe he's at Expedia.
Okay, Expedia. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Industry. It's one of the leading websites in our field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
they're a subsidiary of Move Inc. that has a whole bunch of different
I didn't know this.
Media and entertainment type companies, but that group, obviously Realtor.com, is going head to head with Zillow, and now with CoStar, that's coming into New York with CitySnap. And so there's kind of a dogfight going on in the online listing portal world.
Interesting.
Really
but CoStar is all commercial. I don't see them really impeding in Realtor.com.
Well, they bought a company called HomeSnap, which is actually some agent-friendly tools, realtor-friendly tools outside of New York.
Uh-huh.
And now they're funding, CoStar is funding HomeSnap to build a company called CitySnap, which is intended to be the direct competitor to StreetEasy in New York.
Got it. Ooh,
so it's going to be really interesting to see how those two really big companies go head to head, and then Realtor.com is trying to fight with them as well. So there's kind of a three dog race on the portal front.
Oh my goodness! So who knew that the tech war behind websites have been so intense? We only see, well, on our end in New York City, we only see we don't even see Zillow. We see just StreetEasy. Yeah. And that's it.
And Zillow purchased StreetEasy. How long ago?
About 7
months?
7 years.
7 years ago. Okay.
6-7 years ago. A while ago.
Yeah.
A while ago. Shout out Jared Kleinstein, who's been on my podcast as well. One of the founders of StreetEasy. and left when Zillow purchased them. It was like $70 million or something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was a great purchase. That's one of their best acquisitions. All right, Dan, I'm not sure if you have any of this or many of this. What is an insult that you received that you are proud of?
Ooh, you talk a lot for a data nerd.
That definitely happened at McKinsey. For sure.
Yeah,
You talk a lot, huh?
As Sean was alluding, we both used to work at McKinsey. That's obviously where we met, and we decided to kind of go through all of this. And I spent a lot of time in windowless basement rooms writing code, right, and doing a lot of that. But eventually,
Very glamorous.
Very glamorous.
I thought the McKinsey office is the bright and shiny tower over at Hudson Yards.
Yeah, exactly. Except not the room that I got. I think a lot of this stuff, right, was I definitely got pulled out of the basement every now and then to say, will you help explain what any of this means?
Oh, okay.
And I think there was that time I was like, you give me the opportunity, I will talk.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So in that regard, I think there's often like, is it derogatory? Maybe it's not totally clear. I definitely talk too much given the opportunity, and then people find out it's like, oh, you spend most of your time solitary writing code. Weird. Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a good thing to have if you're talkative and most importantly personable, which I think you very much are. You could become a broker actually if you want. You could be very talkative.
I deal well with rejection as well.
Yeah, okay. Is that?
It's more from his personal life.
I got a lot of personal things that carry over my professional positions.
They say that if you have a high EQ, you have a low IQ, and vice versa. You have a low IQ, you have a high EQ. It looks like you have both.
Or neither.
Or not.
So I don't know how do you drive that? Yeah.
But yeah, the personal life part, that's funny. Point noted, especially for our listeners. Let's see, final question. Who answered the last one? Was it? How about both of you guys answer this last question? Do you guys have a morning routine?
I do smoothie, gym, coffee.
Berries?
Usually not berries in the morning.
Okay. You
Still
do 2
waking
days.
up. Yeah, if I do berries, it's in the afternoon.
Is it in the afternoon? Okay. What about you?
I get up pretty early. So
Dad wakes up
Like what time?
ridiculously early.
4:45 to
Wow.
5:15, somewhere in that gap, right? It also
4:45.
what happened the night before, right?
Yeah.
But I get up early, have absurd amounts of coffee, and I knock out a good chunk of my non-interactive work generally before the day starts. So, like when we get to
Coding work.
well, not even anymore. We hired a guy, Mr. Kevin Bohansky, to do a lot of our data engineering work. So he kind of took my fingers off the keyboard. So in many ways, actually now, I spend a lot of my time reviewing our designs in the morning and trying to get feedback and think about things like what's the right color for this badge, but then also just a bunch of the standard stuff that everyone's doing. Answering emails, replying to those things. But I try to get most of those things in review and get everything ready. So I'm a big morning person.
4:45 is an extraordinary hour to start to work. Now,
Beautiful.
When you go on your ski trips, it probably helps because, well, not only are you on mountain time 2 hours behind, but if you're working about 4:45 mountain time, that's 2:25 a.m. East Coast time. You have more than enough time to get ready for the first run and turns and all of that, plus more.
Yeah, that's right. The funny thing is what I found over the course of this last week, not only am I getting up a little early because I'm going from East Coast to mountain time, but all my friends are just lazy. And so they get up a little bit later. So I had the unique privilege of cleaning up the kitchen before everyone else got up after
You're the
last
best travel mate right there.
and having, again, just like 15 cups of coffee. Just
15 is pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
Pretty aggressive. What time do you wake up?
I usually wake up around 6:45.
That's normal, yeah.
And if I have something to reach out to Dan about, I know I'm going to get a response within 5
I was
minutes.
going to say, Sean will pick me on the earlier side
Yeah,
for
okay.
sure. But he knows after 9 o'clock, the odds of getting me, like 9 p.m., it's very, very low.
Oh, okay. You get to bed around what, 9 or 10 o'clock?
I'm like a 10 o'clock plus or minus half an hour.
Okay.
You know?
That's good, respectable.
Yeah.
Very grown up. All right, so let's get into the general talking points. Sean, as a Compass alum, and that's where we met, why did you decide to join Compass after working at McKinsey? I mean, McKinsey is like the Harvard of consulting. I mean, I don't know everything, but from what I know, I think McKinsey is probably one of the top institutions to work for a big corporate company. Why would you want to come to a smaller startup?
Yeah, so maybe I'm a glutton for punishment, but I had kind of 2 tours of duty at McKinsey.
That's right.
McKinsey, Compass McKinsey.
That's right.
The second switch people often ask me about. So the first one was pretty obvious for me. It was to leave this place. That was a great place to learn and was a good jumping off point.
Yeah.
But to get interested in this new industry, real estate, and then to have an opportunity in the role that I had at Compass, which was to lead the expansion team and kind of those operations nationally, that was an amazing experience and inspired a lot of the thoughts behind Courted. But the reason to then go back.
Yes. All right, sorry. Go back to recruiting. You were talking about your...
Suddenly we're in a new room.
In a new room, a
how'd that
little bit of transformation spot. So yeah, and just in terms of recruiting, one of the things just to repeat, we found early on is, real estate agents are not using LinkedIn for either finding a brokerage to work for or hiring an agent to their team or their
I don't know
office.
why that is.
Well, our intuition, what we found when we were talking to people about this, is that it doesn't have the right information. That at a very basic level, you want to know where people work, what types of properties they sold, how long have they been doing it. The experience that is about their, kind of quote unquote production profile is really important.
Yeah.
Again, both for hiring people to be on a team or an office or who you're looking for. And then in addition to that, you just don't have a consolidated place that is easy to find all this information.
It is, yeah, you're right.
So in that regard, what people have been using our kind of pre-populated set of profiles as well as the kind of search criteria that we've generated is to find the right agents they want to build their teams, right? So folks that are working in a geographically complementary area, or folks that are working in a specific type of property at a price point that they need on their team. So for example, if you're looking for an agent that is focused on open houses, but higher end open houses, right? For example, you really start whittling down to a subset of agents that have experience in that.
Right.
And you can actually do that on Courted in a way that you really can't with any of the other existing platforms.
What if you wanted to do a high-end open house but you had no experience? Are you still able to, put your data in there so that your name shows up, or?
Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to your actual production characteristics, the things you can do are illustrate, for example, in your About Me section, or add in your skills and keyword kind of search, right? So all of the qualitative information in addition to your production, what your specialties are,
right,
what you're wanting to do, and what your kind of goals and achievements are. So a lot of those things can be added in addition to what their production characteristics are. And some of the things that are maybe really foundational, especially we found in Miami, such as the ability to speak Spanish, right?
Sure.
So the ability to find people on some of those components in addition to what they sell.
Got it. So it's an agent search for agents that want to build other agents, recruit other agents into their team.
And vice versa, right? So 50% of agents drop out in the first year, 70% have dropped out after year 2, national stats. The best place for someone to get set up in this industry is on a team.
I agree.
And yet,
100%.
How do you figure out which teams are recruiting? It's very, very difficult.
I have no
so
idea.
Discovery about your amazing team talk with this wonderful media angle that you guys have and all the landlord relationships that you have in New York, it's not that easy to be found by brand new agents who've just passed the test.
No.
And so
it's
there's
impossible.
kind of a two-sided impact to that as well.
Right, yeah. I remember back in the day, the managers would say, well, if you want to build a team, you have to look at, who you're co-broking with. And that was a good strategy, but it's also a very time-consuming, slow, drawn-out process. I mean, we met some good people that we've interviewed for our team through co-broking, but it was never efficient, right? Because we're focused on closing the deal. We don't really care so much about recruiting you. Shout out Jessica Wolf and some of the other girls that had worked with us, for us, whatnot. But yeah, it's definitely a huge. It's a bottleneck process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so much of the industry, your success is dictated by your network. And that means where you work, who you work with, the referrals you create, ultimately the team that you build.
Your network is your net worth.
Your network is your net worth, that's right. And one of the things that we I think are trying to think about is that network is naturally limited just by your ability to say who you know.
Yeah.
What is the
100%.
digital augmentation of that, where you can actually think about people's, in a quantitative or a digital way to find alternatives to the people that you know, again, through each one of those components, where you work, who you work with, the referral network that you have, and ultimately the team that you build.
Right. Okay. No, that's really good. The more candidates, the better, and the more filters, the better. Right.
Yeah, and then on referrals, right? I mean, it's no surprise.
That's the third component.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
no surprise to anyone who is in real estate that their clients are considering living in a more diverse geographical area than ever before. And it's great if you know 100 agents around the country, right? But how do you make sure that all the agents that are sending a deal to your market know you? So we have taken what is a relatively complicated math and said, what's a client need? Which are the agents that match that experience? If I'm looking at the Continuum building in South Beach, who produces between 2 to 4 million on the buy side? I can tell you exactly who those people are based on their selected transaction experience, and then I can show that to you in New York so that you can be sure that the person that you're recommending to your loyal client is actually the person with the most experience.
Right.
And it's great if that's within your company. If you want to keep that within your company, wonderful. But most agents work at a single office brokerage that has less than 20 agents. So most people don't have access to that kind of in-house network. And so, we're just excited about creating those connections and organic connections between all agents around the country.
Danielle, do you know any brokers in Big Sky, Montana?
I do not.
Yeah, I mean, how would I find? We don't have an office there. How would we find them? Or do you know any agents in Yellowstone Club? Run the Yellowstone Club? None of us know.
Some park rangers, maybe.
Yeah, that's right.
None of us know brokers that run the Yellowstone Club. So yeah, I mean, even at Compass, I mean, if you think about it, the opportunity of what you guys are building is huge because we only refer people within our markets, right? It's not like we don't have an office in Lake Anna, Virginia. I say Virginia because we talked about was it Quarter.com is the spot in Virginia?
Yeah, that's right.
Richmond.
We don't have a office in Morgantown, West Virginia, or wherever. I mean, there's thousands of cities all over America that we don't really do any business in. So, what if we had a client's, family member or relative that lives in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and they need not Allentown. I don't know why I said Allentown, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure it's a pretty robust real estate market there right now. What do we do? Like if we had a tool that we could say, okay, well, let's look at Allentown, Pennsylvania. 1 to 2, I don't know, $500,000 to $1 million home sales on the sell side. Then that gives us the ability to not use Compass as a referral, but like whoever the local brokerage is there that is the master of their own universe in Allentown. That would really definitely be helpful for sure.
And then would it be cool if we could tell you which agents have been highly rated by agents who have already sent them a referral in the past.
Right. Oh, that's even bigger.
So how are you, not just from your client service, but how are you specifically in terms of interacting with the referring agent? How quickly was the commission paid? How well did you take care of their clients? All
like
these
an
different
internal
dimensions.
Yelp review.
Yeah, agent to agent.
Yeah, that's good actually. That's really good because that really puts the pressure on the referred agent to make sure they perform.
Correct.
Maybe not even close, but make sure they do their full due diligence and make sure that their job is done correctly. So that definitely makes sense. A question on our end as a broker, how do you guys earn profits? How do you guys turn a profit?
Yeah, so we definitely have an eye towards profitability. We're
Sure.
very early, so we're not yet at that stage.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, I think our thesis, like what Corded is built off of, is first the goal to support the agent win in the future in a very ever changing and evolving landscape. Number two, because we're a third party company, right, that sits outside of a brokerage, we can provide services to all agents. When you spread your services across all agents, you can do that quite cost effectively. Right?
Sure.
So we're not just focused on X% of agents that are working in this
You're not
region.
focused on top
in our
10% of
office.
Miami brokers.
It's everybody.
Yeah.
And so, there is some technology cost associated with building, of course, but really we can service everyone. And that's how we hope to get to.
How many licensed agents are in America? Do you know? Roughly?
So there's about 1.6 million licenses.
Wow.
But when you look at it, I mean, you can
160,000 performers.
Yeah, so you can look
10,000.
at, you can
10%,
look at Miami as an example. You have about 30,000 people in Miami-Dade who have a license and they've produced something more than zero over the last 12 months. 30% of those people, right? So of that 30,000, 10,000 of them don't actually work in Miami. They have their headquarters, brokerages in Tampa or New York or somewhere else.
Okay.
And then within that 20,000, above 3.5 million in production, so like they're probably full time, you get down to 5,000.
Wait, when you say 3.5 million in production, is that GCI or is that sales?
Sales volume.
Sales
Sales
volume,
volume, which is a couple deals. It's a couple deals, right?
But in Miami right now, it's like one house.
when you think of that ratio, right, it's 5,000 out of the 30,000 that are actually producing, right? And so the numbers often say, 1.5 million in the country, but of the people who are full time, it's a lot less than that.
Sure. Okay. So let's just say 1.6 million licenses in the United States. You could get 10% of the market is 160,000 licenses. That's a pretty good loyalty if you could get all the brokers to come in and support that data.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of
way more than Compass, but Compass is only 25,000 agents, I believe. So.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've considered so much, if you look at this tale, so much is focused on that top 10% of the people that sell the vast majority of real estate.
Sure. Yeah.
But that other 90% presents an enormous opportunity. Those are folks that are either working on teams that might not be getting credit for their deals.
Or part-time.
They're part-time. They're new entrants into the industry.
Sure.
In many ways, they're the agents that actually get the information asymmetry disadvantage.
Sure.
Right? By the fact that they don't see so much of the market, that they might only be doing this part-time, that they've only been doing it for a couple years. So one of the things that we've been thinking about is not just how do you enable the folks that are visible, that have strong connections, that are, have such a great track record, but how do you enable them to find great folks on their team, and how do you enable those other folks to find the right recruiting or referral opportunities? Right, they're the ones that in many ways might have an off-market deal, for example, but they don't know who to get in touch with.
Okay.
And that type of an inventory actually, and that ability to monetize your network isn't impactful at that level.
Right. Yeah, there's so much more that Compass has not done that they are doing, which is not a cut against us by any means, but there's obviously so much more opportunity.
Compass has done an incredible job of creating tools for agents, we think, right? And I think one of our orientations is the attempt to do it not for a single brokerage, but the tools that are useful across brokerages, right? Things that get more valuable as more agents join up. A proper network, right?
Sure.
The ability to generate a meaningful referral goes up as more agents are available to send referrals, right? So I think in terms of, those types of tools that complement each other, we think, instead of kind of compete with each other.
Yeah.
And we have more. I'm personally proud of this. We have Compass is the most represented brokerage on the quoted platform.
Yeah.
Which I think speaks to the fact that we're not actually doing overlapping things with Compass. We're trying to connect people in an interoperable inter-brokerage.
When you say
context.
represented, does that mean as in they are the most used? Like logged on?
More agents come from Compass than any other company.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
on our platform.
Got it. Okay. That's great. Yeah, it just speaks to I guess the power of our flexibility and willingness to learn, and hopefully not be that complacent broker that doesn't like technology.
Yeah, and wonderful managers in Miami. Like Yasser and Dominique, often invite us to come meet some of the agents. So
good.
We're very thankful to those folks.
That's amazing. Yeah, shout out to them. We talked about metrics earlier, and I want to wrap up this session with some last questions. We talked about metrics earlier. Give me your vision on what you want Quarter to be 1 year from today for you two to be satisfied.
Great question.
Satisfied, not happy, satisfied.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think there's kind of a one way of thinking about that is what is the value accrued to a user of Quarted in a year, right? I'd say that's kind of at the micro level. So on that, I would say agents come to Corded, they get smarter, and specifically, they're able to take their active contacts and groom them, their contacts and groom them into active clients and convert that in a better way than they can today. So Corded is helping them interface and know when to go interact with their clients so they can grow the group of active clients without doing too much extra work. I think at a macro perspective, we're in 5 of the top markets in the country. We have at least 40% of the active agents in each of those markets using the platform, and we have a big chunk of those users coming back every day. Okay. So I kind of think about it both at the micro and the macro level.
Okay. Dan,
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot about that micro component as well, right? And it comes from that just basic assumption. If we're creating value for our users, we will be able to create value as a company overall. And to, I think, a large degree, from a product and an engineering perspective, it is making a product that is simple and useful and used. So in my perspective, it's all about engagement and adoption in the markets that we are in. And I think that will compel us, obviously, to be able to go to these ones. So I'll be happy if we get to 5 or 10 markets. I'll be satisfied if we have 100% locked in that value proposition across those 3 dimensions, even if it's at a simpler, smaller level.
Okay, understood. Danielle, do you have any ending questions? Corded, here you go.
What's been the biggest unexpected challenge and biggest unexpected reward so far building the business?
Oh, challenge and reward. Good question.
I would say on the challenge, it's I have some the shared experience with you both from Compass, where it was kind of early stage, but when I joined, I think it was just raised the Series C, so the company was pretty well established. Then we obviously had a shared McKinsey experience, and now we're kind of started and kind of helping to run a company that's really early. If I just think about conversations that we were having at 7 a.m. this morning, we're talking about very near-term things that we have to sprint towards, as well as really large conceptual strategic prioritization. So the challenge is being able to think about what's right in front of you while the big goals can actually be prioritized in slightly different ways. So you have to be able to think on multiple levels, kind of at the same time, and hold certain things constant so that you can actually do one thing well in any one session. So I'd say that's challenging. I'm not going to also say that that's rewarding. I mean, if the company does well, that's rewarding. I think the rewarding thing for me is, especially coming from the McKinsey experience to Corded, we were working in a project-based context where you're only working for more than 8 weeks at max with the same people, which was great if you hated the people that you worked with, and terrible if you loved your team, right? Dan and I and Joe ended up just kind of back-to-back projects for 4 years, which was great, but we didn't really get to see the evolution of our team members through that process. And now we've been together with some team members for 9 or 10 months. So just seeing them grow and develop and being able to give them opportunities for them to kind of try out new things and get better at new things has been incredible. And then we genuinely have this culture where people are really connected and it kind of feels like a small family. And that's been a ton of fun. So I'd say the people part's been the most rewarding.
I think you should brace yourself because you're going to cherish all these moments right now, right? The small early stage family style atmosphere. Back in the day, it was great. Remember this 7 years ago, 8 years ago when we started. I mean, it's that back in the day is today. I think Steve Carroll said that, and Steve Carroll said that from the office. I wish I knew when back in the day was. It's always right now. But I mean, it's true. That family style startup feel is definitely a special moment within your lives. What about you?
Oh, that's a great challenge. I would say the hardest thing right now is to constantly remind myself, Dan, you are not an agent, right? And so this idea
don't assume to know.
My preferences, and again, I come from a total data nerd math background, right? My ideal UI is an Excel spreadsheet,
Agents don't. They don't have your brain.
Well, what little is left. But I think that the challenge for that one is to just continually need to assess, am I making an assumption based on something I feel or I've heard an agent tell me they want? Right? Or that this is a pain point and this is challenging. And throughout that process, it's been difficult, right? And because I think there's this, if I ask myself, we can move really fast, but you come to the wrong answer. If you ask a lot of agents, it just takes a lot of time, but you generally come to the right answer. And I think that there's the balance of figuring out how to manage that process. So I think that's been hard a little bit for sure. On the rewarding side, I love working with agents.
Oh, good.
They're a fun party, as it turns out.
Yes.
Generally speaking, right, very extroverted. They have the edge, right? High EQ.
Low IQ, maybe?
Who knows? But a lot of hustle, right? And I think that there's an element of this that I appreciate so much because they are going after. And in one respect, they are like, please, if you can build this, I will use it every day.
Yeah.
But in the other respect, if you build something that's not useful, they will tell you. They'll be like, this is too much work. You're asking too much from me. I'm on my phone eating a cheeseburger en route to an open house. There's no way I can enter all this information, right? And so there's just like simple things like knowing when they'll have access to a proper keyboard versus a phone. Right?
Yeah,
and those are all a lot of the function of learning about agents and
that's true.
So
I leave a lot of keyboard heavy functions to when I'm back in the office. So
that's right.
I'm not trying to do it on the phone.
But yeah, so working with agents and getting the opportunity to do it has been awesome. I think so much of it, we're always asking, what's your secret sauce? How do you go about it? And trying to identify those consistencies of those trends across agents and to think to ourselves, right, there's a consistency in the things that make their lives hard and the ways in which they're successful. How do we capitalize and digitize parts of that to make it less painful or even more successful? To me, that's been one of the more cool parts of this particular endeavor.
Let's cap this off with a final, leading off to your answer there, final question. I want to cap it off. What is one or two things that you've seen as a theme after meeting all these brokers from New York and Miami that are successful? Is there one or two things that you've noticed that they have in common? I'm always curious about this too. I mean, I'm surrounded by brokers. What is it? Have you seen anything? Noticed anything?
They deal with rejection very well.
You're going to be a great
right. I think that there is this element. We hear it all the time, right? I mean, like you don't expect to close every single deal, but you got to get out there doing it. And I think that there is just that ability to focus in, try to make the sale. If it works, great, and if it doesn't, you just move on. And to do that I love that.
I think I've kind of seen two archetypes of agents. There's the kind of relationship gurus, right? This is like what you're saying. I'm not saying low IQ, but the very high EQ, right? Very social, they make strong personal connections, they know how to stay in touch, they visit when they travel to another market, they're usually great at referrals, their clients love them, they're taking them around town, great buyers, agents, whatnot. That was kind of a very traditional segment of agents. Then there's the kind of innovation-minded agents, I would say. And these are the ones that are paying attention to the new technologies in the space, that are thinking about how they might take advantage of being on a reality TV show, work with a power buyer, or be the preferred agent for a new tech startup. And they're constantly trying new things. And I think that group was always small relative to the relationship gurus. But now we're starting to see some overlap and that second group growing. And I think it's actually really important for people to try to flex that mindset because, like we've said a few times, there's a lot of new things out there. And so being totally closed off to what's coming may not really set you up for future success. And so it's encouraging for us to see a lot of those kind of innovation-focused folks, and those are a lot of folks that are using our platform.
That was awesome. That answer. Two parts, two types of brokers. Put that in the highlight reel. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to put in the show notes where to reach you guys on social. Daniel, want to share your TikTok? You have a TikTok?
I've heard of TikTok.
You've heard of TikTok?
It's great.
Tech guy, yes.
Tech guy.
I'll put in the website. I'll put in your emails and how to reach you guys and whatnot. Thank you so much for your time. All the
Pleasure.
best to you. Let's recap again in a year or two to see where you guys are at. Yeah, just as a refresher to our audience. And obviously, myself, we talked about Levi Meyer earlier. Shout out Levi. Danielle will always be here to support and, friends of the real estate space. So thank you so much. And, that was great.
Thank you, Danielle. Thanks, Talk.
Thanks
Much
for having
appreciated.
us.
Much appreciated. Thank you guys. Okay, stop. That's the end.